Hello? If you're staying for this part, please come up close. I want to talk to both of you. What? Yeah, if...
I'll start closing those doors.
Yeah, okay. If you can sit in the front row, that's fine. This is not church. You can sit in the front row. It's not like church. Don't have to sit in the back. And I would prefer to stay down here, but they tell me that since we have a lot of people that will be watching live stream or looking at it later, it works better if I stand up there. But I want people down here close because if you have questions, it's easier to hear each other and interact because this is really interactive actually. So let's have a quick word of prayer, and then we'll get started. Father God, thank you for being with us and in this time of difficulty to give us peace with trust in you. Praying in your name, amen. The principal purpose for this section, this time, is to convey more information than you typically get when you watch the news, and they're just quick bullet points, and you don't get a chance to ask questions. So this is intended to be an interactive process. Everyone talks about the coronavirus. Its new name is COVID-19. That's what the World Health Organization, I think, are the ones that designate it. I will switch back and forth, but the reason it's called COVID-19 is because there are a lot of coronaviruses, and this happens to be a particular one. I'm going to talk for a couple minutes, and then Kiana's going to talk for a couple minutes, and then we're going to try and answer questions if you have questions. I think one of the places that we want to start is just to talk about viruses, because to most people that's a very abstract term, and they don't understand how what they do affects whether a virus feels at home with them or stays away. I don't know how many people realize that when it comes to viruses, every single day you have thousands of viruses on your hands, in your environment. But God created you with a number of weapons to be able to fend off those viruses. You probably haven't thought of it this way, but one of the first weapons is skin. God actually created this suit of armor against viruses that is your skin. You know, most of the time you get a virus on your hands, you wash your hands, the virus isn't something you have to worry about. So this is a first line of protection. He also gave you an immune system to be able to fight viruses. I personally am a visual person, so I'm going to take 2 seconds to talk about viruses in a way that hopefully will help you to see them. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do because it's not very easy to talk and demonstrate at the same time. I'm going to hold my hands up, and I'm going to create a circle with my hands. I want you to focus on the size of the circle. I want you to focus on the size of my head, and then I'm going to show you something else. So, all right, that circle, imagine, is the diameter of a human hair. That's something you can see, and that's something that you're familiar with. If the circle is that big, my head would be about the size of a single red blood cell. And at that scale, the coronavirus is about this big. Viruses really don't have a good way in life. They are easily defeated. It takes lots and lots of them to have an effect. A single virus doesn't last very long. It's subject to temperature, heat, a bunch of things. It really has most success when it has lots and lots of its buddies together in a pile, in a place where they feel safe. And that virus has to come from you and be into me before I can get sick. It doesn't just by radiation get over to you. It's something that actually has to move from inside your body to inside my body before it's going to have an effect on me. And that's important because when we talk about the steps that you can take to keep that virus from being a problem for you, you're trying to interrupt that process. That's what you're trying to do, is stop that which is in somebody else from getting into you. Because the virus can't live by itself. It needs to get into your body. It needs to get into the cells in your body and replicate. It's something that it's on a very tenuous path. So if somebody sneezes or coughs, the virus is inside mucus. And when you cough or sneeze, it goes into the air. And there's big drops and there's little drops. And the big drops fall fastest, and the little drops can be suspended in the air for a while. That's why they talk about being 6 feet away. That's one of the things that they talk, so that if somebody is talking to you or there's some other thing going on, that helps separate you a reasonable distance. That's why it is recommended that if you cough, if you're sick, cough into your elbow. That way, what you sneeze or cough gets stuck here in your elbow. That's not the best choice. This is the best choice. The best choice is if you have a Kleenex, use it, throw it away, then the virus is not on your clothes, and so right, you have a tendency to do this, and then it's on your hands. So if you have little packages of Kleenex, that's good. If you don't have little packages of Kleenex, get a regular box, pull out 6 sheets, fold them, and put them in a baggie or something so you have some for when you're out and about. Washing hands. People touch surfaces, and when you touch surfaces, sometimes there are viruses that live on those surfaces because somebody who was sick touched that surface. Tables, touch computer screens, like at restaurants, doorknobs, lots of different places where there are surfaces where the virus can live. But the viruses don't live forever, but they can last a period of time. Because the coronavirus is new, we don't know exactly how long it lasts. But that's why we use disinfectant wipes to wipe things off. That's why if you're out in the public and you have to touch things, you should wipe your hands, clean your hands, wash your hands. I was reading yesterday that with regard to most people's bathroom habits, this is kind of gross, but the reality is you need to know this. The CDC says that the average, well, let's put it this way, among women, about 61% of women wash their hands in a public restroom after they've gone to the bathroom. Only 61%. That leaves 39% that don't. Unfortunately, men are worse. Only 31% of men wash their hands after they go to the bathroom. Therefore, things they touch can have viruses and germs and other things there. So that's the reason what you want to do is interrupt the path between that person and you and wash your hands when you're touching things that they have touched. One thing that they don't talk about in the news that I want to talk to you about. If you're washing your hands 20 or 30 times a day, that's probably more than you're used to washing your hands. And some people, and particularly people that are younger, you can wash your hands that many times and you'll do it right and your hands are going to get dried out. The oil on your hands is going to get dried out. If the oil on your hands gets dried out, then you can develop cracks, chapped hands. And when you do that, you have interrupted the armor that God gave you and given the virus a way to get into your body. So when you wash your hands, also have hand lotion, because adding hand lotion to your hands keeps your hands healthy. So that's an important part of this that, frankly, I haven't heard anybody talk about. One of the other really important things is this. People keep their phone in their pocket, purse, whatever they happen to do, and they go about their business and they get a phone call and they don't think about it and they pick this up. And so now the things that they've been touching, the virus is communicated to this, and you pick it up and go and put it right next to your face. Or you touch it and then you touch your face. People touch their face all the time. I will probably do it before I'm done talking here because people just do that hundreds of times a day. Nervous, thoughtful, you have an itch, whatever, and that's something that you don't want to do. There are places online you can look at ways to teach yourself not to touch your face so often. One of the things is if you want to itch your eye, well, right at the edge of your eye, there's a little bit of less protected part of your body, and so a virus could enter through the eye. It can enter through the nose, it can enter through the mouth. So not touching your face is a good thing. Masks are good as a reminder to not touch your face. But after that, the average mask is not going to do you a lot of good. The virus is very tiny, and if it's suspended in the air, and again, most of it won't stay suspended in the air, but if you're talking to somebody and if something is going on so that it's suspended in the air, one of the regular masks, as you breathe in, it will still come around the edges. Or better yet, people say, well, I can't hear you, so you pull it down and then you start talking and you don't have the mask anyway. There's a special kind of mask called an N95 mask that medical people wear because it is effective at protecting them from getting the virus. Unfortunately, because most people get their information from just, the internet or bullet points or whatever, and they don't really understand what they're doing, they think that a mask is going to do a lot of good, so everybody went out and bought masks. So it's actually more difficult for medical people who need that kind of mask to not have it. So we want to be thoughtful and not contribute to the problem. We have several problems. We have a medical problem, and we have an economic problem, the way people behave problem, and so we want to try and address both of those. If there are questions, we'll deal with it in a minute about the virus. I just wanted to mention, okay, so we've talked about the virus. The other big thing is, if you did absolutely nothing wrong, but you had the misfortune to interact with somebody who subsequently is identified as having the coronavirus, you may be quarantined. And if you are quarantined, you may have to stay in your house for 2 or 3 weeks. You might not have anything wrong with you, but that doesn't change. You have a completely new situation. Most people have no experience staying in their house for 2 or 3 weeks. So you need to do things like get staples, things that you use on a regular basis that can go on your shelf. They don't need to be refrigerated. It could be beans and rice. It could be canned goods, whatever. Those are the first line of defense that you need to get. The second thing is buy things that can be kept in a refrigerator or a freezer. That's helpful, and frequently that food is more entertaining and enjoyable, so you want to get some of that and then rotate it as the weeks go on. But buying ahead, just so you're prepared, that's helpful. And then as opportunity exists, buy fruits, vegetables, etc. Be sure and wash them. Kiana, do you want to come up and talk about, other things that you have to deal with? We do have some handouts, and anybody that is listening online and wants to write the church and ask for handouts, we can email you the handouts that we're going to be talking about.
All right, let's talk about numbers quick, because we all like numbers. Numbers are important to us. So I mentioned 2 numbers earlier this morning during our service. The first one is the number of confirmed cases in Washington, and that is 102 as of this morning. The number of deaths that we've had here in Washington is at 16. Now, those 2 numbers are important, and we care a lot about them, but specifically let's talk about the confirmed cases. So we have 102 confirmed cases here in Washington. That number has gone up significantly in the last few days, but that's actually a good thing, and let me tell you why. Last week, beginning of this week, Washington State developed the ability to do our own testing for the coronavirus here in our state. Prior to that, we had to collect the sample, send it to the CDC in Georgia for them to test it, and then send the results back to us. So that took a lot of time for us to learn how many cases we actually had. Now we have the capability here in Washington to do all of our own testing, which means we will now find many more positive cases simply because we have the ability to test them more often, more frequently, and get the results back quicker. So in the news, you're going to see spikes, you're going to see all kinds of news reports saying, oh my goodness, we went from 79 to 102 overnight. That's because we now have the ability to find all the cases that were out there before. So please help me spread the message. Don't freak out when the numbers jump. It's actually a good thing. Now, we wish those people weren't sick, but it's a good thing. Every time we get another case or more cases, we have the ability to learn more about the coronavirus. We do not know much about it. It's rapidly evolving. Things are developing. The scientists are going crazy, learning everything they can. So the more cases we get, the more we're able to learn about what does it actually do, how long does it live without a host, like Bob was talking about. So we don't want people to be sick, but more cases helps us learn what can we expect, what's going to go on. So that's in terms of numbers. There's one other number. You might have heard the term persons under investigation, PUI. Does that sound familiar? Maybe you might see it in the news. Persons under investigation means individuals who we think may have had contact or have been in close proximity to someone who had the coronavirus. What we're currently doing with those PUIs is saying we want you to self-quarantine at home. So they're not being hospitalized, we're monitoring them, and we have a number of how many of those people we have. But they're staying at home, they're self-monitoring. Should they get symptoms, then they work with their healthcare provider. So those are the three numbers you'll hear in news reports, is the confirmed cases, death, and PUIs. Obviously, we want those numbers to start going down, but let me tell you, they will be going up. Don't panic. In some cases, like the number of confirmed cases, that's a good thing. That allows us to learn more about what's going on. So that's a bit about the numbers. Bob, did you have anything else, or should we open to questions?
I just wanted to talk about the handouts. All of the handouts that we have here are ones that are available from the CDC website, but I'll just mention them because there's something that we think is important, particularly in the context of our church community here. One is a basic fact sheet about COVID-19, the sort of information we were sharing. A second one has to do with how to take care of somebody who may be in your home who has the virus. A lot of people who may get sick don't necessarily have to go to the hospital. And so you're going to be at home, and so we have the possibility of doing that. This is really made for healthcare providers, but it is useful for individuals as well. There is a flyer on, if you have it, what should you do? Like, stay home, take care of yourself, don't be a hero, don't try and go to work, we love you, watch on live stream, don't come here. And another one on hand care, hand washing. And in particularly, it says hand washing a corporate activity. And really, one of the benefits of being in this community, church community setting is, as I said, the viruses want to get from one place to another, and they like it when there are more numbers. If we as a community are being responsible, if we're washing our hands, if we're teaching our children to wash their hands, if we're not coughing on each other, we're creating a community here that is going to be more healthy than the broader community. So it's something that we do for ourselves, it's something that we do for other people. We have copies for you here, and again, you can write to the church if you want copies, but all of them are on the CDC website. So why don't we answer questions?
Okay, so we'll open up to questions. If you have any questions, I will we'll repeat them, so that way anyone live streaming, you can also hear. Yes?
So when you're quarantined, are you not allowed to go outside at all? You have to stay inside your house, you can't go out around your house?
So the question is, if you're quarantined, do you actually have to stay in your house? There's no formal guidance, but the answer is no. Like, you can go outside your immediate house, you know, your driveway, the grass outside. Absolutely, yeah, you can go outside your house. When we want people to be quarantined, we don't want them going out to the grocery store, out to community events, to work. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, you're not all stuck inside your tiny house. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely, you can go outside. Yeah. Any other questions? Nothing else. Yes.
So when you say confirmed cases, are they all people who are currently sick, or are the people who got better? Or, like, I want to hear the number about people who are getting better. You know?
Yeah. So the question is, the number of confirmed cases, does that have to do with people who are currently sick or people who have gotten sick and have gotten over it? And the good news is almost everyone, super, super high percentage, very high percentage of everyone who gets the coronavirus, it gets better. They're fine. It's going to act to us who are healthy individuals who go to work and are out in our communities. If we were to get the coronavirus, it would look like the flu, and we'd be home for a week and then we'd be back out and we'd be just fine. So the majority of people have gotten the coronavirus, at least that's at that 102 here in Washington. They've already recovered. They were tested positive, they were sick, they had the flu for a week, and they're good. Yeah, that's the majority. The fewer, the other side of the percentage, are the few who have died from the coronavirus, and that population is largely either older or have an immunocompromised system. So they have some kind of other chronic health condition. Everyone else has been recovering just fine.
So compared to the flu, I know I've seen the flu statistics, granted, not everyone's had the coronavirus, so. But if we were monitoring the flu, like we're monitoring and reporting on flu in the news, like we were the coronavirus, what would the fear or alarm be for the flu?
Great question. So the question for you live streaming was some of the comparison of the flu to the coronavirus in the news and why the reactions are different. Is that kind of a fair summary? So the flu, as you've seen in the news, more people die each year from the flu than have been dying from the coronavirus. The huge difference is we're used to the flu. Our bodies have built up immunity to it. There are new strains each year, but we've come in contact. Some of us have gotten the flu, healed, recovered. We get the flu shot. We're used to it. The coronavirus is a brand new strain that we've never seen on this planet before. And so all of us are susceptible because we've never had it in our lives before. Yeah.
One other thing, viruses are different than some other kinds of germs, particularly bacteria. With bacteria, you may get an antibiotic. Going to a doctor is a good thing. But if with the virus, with this, staying home is really about the very best you can do, because you can't go to the doctor and get antibiotics, but you can go home and rest, drink plenty of water, try not to infect other people, wash your hands, do those sorts of things. But self-care takes care of 90-something%. So some people, oh my, I've got the coronavirus, I've got to go to the doctor's office. Well, maybe not. Read the handouts, read the symptoms. If you get to the point where you have a really high fever or you are having trouble breathing, time to get medical help, absolutely. But for many, many people, just staying home, taking care of yourself, having food available so you don't have to go out, those are primary things.
Absolutely. Did I address the part about the media question?
I would just ask if the flu were reported like the coronavirus has been reported.
Yes. So exactly. So if the flu were being reported in the media like the coronavirus is, there would be so much panic. People would be freaking out. We're not, because we're used to it. The coronavirus is new and it's unknown. That's another key piece, is we know nearly everything there is to know about the flu. The science has everything they need to know. Coronavirus, we just don't know enough.
How about vaccine, the progress for vaccine?
The question is, how's the process for the vaccine coming? It's not coming along quickly enough. They're working on it, but that's going to take a really long time. And unfortunately, it's going to take many more cases for them to be able to develop a vaccine that could work against it. Yeah. I wouldn't trust that number. Yeah. I can't really tell you longer or shorter than that, but 18 months is... the media outlet who put out that number totally made it up. I can tell you that, yeah.
But there is an aspect of that that is relevant here. It's a term called flattening the curve. It takes a while to develop a vaccine. If people are thoughtful and responsible and don't pass it along and quarantine themselves and wash their hands, and even if this continues to spread over the next 2-3 years, whatever it is, by taking these steps and slowing down the virus, it gives more of an opportunity. However long it's going to take to get a vaccine, it gives more of an opportunity to get that developed. So it's another reason to do these things. It's called flattening the curve, because if everybody gets sick all at once, then the health system is overwhelmed, the business system is overwhelmed. So what we're doing is, even if we can't beat it today and we can slow it down, that's useful.
So let's talk about closings just for a minute. Starting to close facilities, schools, churches, any kind of organization, when that happens, people start to panic because there's an assumption of, wait, why are they closing? Why are we disrupting normal life? Any kind of closure is it's taken caution. It's just, let's just be safe, everyone go home, go about your normal lives, but let's not meet here. At this point where we are, any closure that you're hearing about that's happening is entirely voluntary by that organization's leadership, which is perfect. That's what we like. We like to see organizations saying, hey, let's just play it safe. I've had some questions about, is the government going to come in and say we're now closing everything? And as a member of the government and our church family and the public, I don't want to see that happen either. So we are very far away from the point where the government would come in and say we are mandating things to be closed. We are very far away from that point, thankfully, because enough small organizations, churches, schools, other organizations have said, let's just close for now. So do anticipate that employers will be saying, hey, everyone go work from home. Schools will be saying, hey, kids, go do distance learning. This is a good thing. It's keeping all of us safe and healthy. Any other questions?
Actually, I have a question. I know that we don't know a whole lot about it, but I have heard that you can get it like twice in a row. Do you know anything about that? Has there been any cases confirmed?
Good question. The question is, can you get the coronavirus again if you've had it once? And currently, no. There are no cases of anyone who's gotten the coronavirus, recovered, and then gotten it again. Similar to the flu, where if you get one strain of it, you're pretty good until the next strain comes out, and then you could get the next strain. Yeah.
You say, you know, if you're sick, like, is it like coughing, fever, is it like, because I have like, you know, a little cold or like, my nose is kind of clogged. I mean, you know, what's the guidelines for when you need to, you know, stay home?
Yeah, so the question is, what are the guidelines or the parameters for staying home if you're feeling sick? Is it only the symptoms of coronavirus or other symptoms? My recommendation is if you are feeling anything less than healthy, stay home. Not because you might have symptoms of coronavirus, but because your immunity is compromised, maybe for something else. Could be the common cold, could be anything. But if your immune system is less than it should be, what it normally is, that's when you're more susceptible to getting a cold or a flu or the coronavirus or any other disease that's out there. So if you're sick or any family member is sick, the safest thing is, even if it's just a sore throat you wake up with in the morning, even that, just stay home, play it safe. Yeah, good question. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question is, how are employers relating to this situation? Most private organizations have been absolutely phenomenal at working with employees. That if employees are even having just an inkling of, I'm not sure about today, employers have been more than happy to say, good, stay home, because they don't want to have an outbreak at their facility. They don't have to send everyone home. So more than likely, please talk to your family's employers. And what I've been hearing is everyone is more than happy to say, yeah, cool, go away, bye, go home.
And again, I think a lot of it is being proactive. Don't wait until you're sick to have that conversation with your employer. Talk to them right now. Say, look, if I'm sick, what do you want me to do? How are we going to handle this? I mean, for instance, in Sacramento, where a example of the virus cropped up, he went to the University of California Davis Med Center in downtown Sacramento. People didn't know what was going on, found out. As a consequence, 21 of the intensive care nurses wound up spending the next 2 weeks at home. So it is stressful, but the more we know in advance, the more we plan in advance, the more you keep yourself healthy. Walk, drink water, eat the right foods. Sleep 7 or 8 hours a night, even if that's not your normal practice. I mean, a lot of people in the normal course of things are burning the candle at both ends, and they're getting 5 hours of sleep and, wearing themselves out. This is a time to do it right for a while, just because the healthier you are, the better chance you have of avoiding it.
One other topic that's important to mention is the stigma that's being associated with the coronavirus. That since this strain of the coronavirus started in China, there is intense stigmatization happening. So please help me and amplify the message that race and culture and ethnic background has absolutely nothing to do with virus spread. We all know germs spread just about anywhere. So please help me in sharing that message that we don't need to add to the situation by adding stigma to it. So just like Bob mentioned, this strain of the coronavirus is one of many coronaviruses. Coronavirus is a family of viruses. You're familiar with the SARS outbreak a few years ago? SARS is also another coronavirus. So this specific strain is in that same family. That is helpful in a way because now we can learn about, well, what did that strain do? And so that helps us learn a little bit about what this strain just might do, maybe.
We have learned one thing that is different with this than some other viruses. The flu, for instance, correct me if I'm wrong, but the flu goes after older people and folks with compromised immune systems and also children quite a bit. This particular coronavirus is tough on older people. Children tend to be asymptomatic even when they catch it. And that's good in that kids don't get as sick as much with this virus. But the fact that they're sick means that they can be a carrier. So if you take them over to grandma's house and grandma catches it, that's a different subject. So be aware and think about how you're going to manage things ahead of time.
So I've heard, like, asymptomatic, I mean, how can you possibly, if the incubation time is 2 weeks or more, and then some people can carry it and be sick with it and not even be manifesting, I mean, you'd have to just close everything down.
Yeah, the question is, if you can't tell that anybody's sick, how do you deal with this? And you can't have these goggles to see things that are invisible. That's true. But that is the reason why it is so important. Teach your children to wash their hands. Be proactive in planning what you're going to do once there's any indication that there's a problem. Because a lot of people make bad choices because they haven't thought about something ahead of time, and they're kind of in a rock and a hard place, and they don't know whether to send the kid to school or go to work themselves or whatever the case may be, because they haven't planned ahead. So people need to think about their child care responsibilities, their elder care responsibilities, volunteer responsibilities that they're very dedicated to. Think about those ahead of time, and if something happens, how are you going to deal with it? Because if you do that, there's often a solution.
Exactly. So the best way to address that is just the basic prevention measures. Yeah. Because we don't know who's carrying any kind of virus at any point. So just basic prevention will help.
So, like, if you have a cough but not fever, you can have it, or is fever very common?
Fever is very common. Similar to a flu, like how you know a flu and a cold is different is the fever piece, similar to here. You will have a fever if you have the coronavirus. Yeah. I will mention one point. You mentioned 2 weeks as the incubation period, and that's what's being pushed out by the World Health Organization, the CDC, and Washington State. That's because we don't know how long it actually could last. So 2 weeks is a very, it's just the longest window that we feel safe with. So likely it does not last that long at all. That's just a safety measure.
I heard someone say, and I don't know where it was from, like 20-day incubation, and I didn't know if that was false news or.
Yeah, none of the science is showing that it lives longer than 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a pretty safe measure. Yeah, what we don't know, one piece of science that don't believe anything the news says about this because we don't know yet, is how long the virus can live on surfaces, hard surfaces, like a table or a chair or anything that we touch. We don't know how long it could live on this. If all the humans were to leave, how long could the virus live on everything in here before humans come back in, and the virus could then come back in contact with us and we can get sick from it. So please don't believe anything you hear about that. We don't know. We're still learning. There was one more point I was going to make and I forgot it.
Well, while you do that, I'll just give Pastor Angel the idea that I think we're about done, and you said you wanted to come up and wrap it up. So you've got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, there was one more point I was going to say. I don't remember.
Oh,
Anyway,
well, let me say one. Oh, did you?
Are there
do it?
any other questions?
Is it unusual that it has from animal to? No?
Surprisingly, most of our diseases are actually, they first start in animals. Yeah, most diseases are zoonotic and they pass that way. Yeah, it's actually pretty common.
And
Yeah.
in some of them, it doesn't cause them any problem, but when it gets in us, it's an entirely different situation. Just one other preparation thing. If you don't cook at home much, start thinking about it, not from the standpoint of fear, but because if you're at home and you have to cook for 2 weeks, it might be good to know how to use a knife and how hot to get the oil and some other things. So spend a little time, Googling recipes and your favorite gourmet cook and come up with some things that'll be easy for you to do if you happen to be at home.
The one other thing I was going to talk about is kids, and the good thing, the great thing is, unlike any other disease, kids are recovering the best from this. Normally, kids and older adults are those two populations that we really worry about with the coronavirus. One really cool statistic is in South Korea, no one has died under the age of 30. That's a very good thing. So kids are actually faring it very, very well. But they're the population we have to teach about just general prevention techniques, so make sure you're teaching them that. Yeah, did I see the question?
I was just going to say, in terms of your children dealing with their grandparents, not only teaching, okay, before we go to grandma's house or before we go in, we're going to use hand sanitizer or wash our hands, but also to teach them, kids come on this very young, the sneezing their elbow. This week I happened to see an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old do that, just because they think it's strange. And I think that's awesome, but I think that's something that would be pretty easy to teach, especially when you're, all the time, but when you're with grandma or grandpa, you want to make sure they stay healthy. Let's make sure we don't spread any bugs.
Do you want to repeat that, or do you want me to?
Sure. So make sure you're teaching your kids to sneeze into their elbow or in a Kleenex or something, because kids, it's amazing what they can learn, and they'll do whatever you do. So make sure you have good habits also and teach kids. One thing I'm going to add on to what I said during church this morning is your official sources of information are the State Department of Health, State Emergency Management, CDC, and the WHO. In addition to that, our local health jurisdictions are just running their wheels off, doing everything they possibly can. So please listen to them also. They're a great source of information. So here in our area, we have the Seattle-King County Public Health Department and the Tacoma-Pierce County. Those are the two largest agencies of the state, and please trust anything they say. They are good people, and they're trying their best. Absolutely. Props to Heidi. She is killing it. Washington Conference has an entire web page about coronavirus specifically related to our churches in our area. So please check that out too.
We just want to take the time to thank you, Kiana, again for being here with us this morning and afternoon and giving us good counsel, and Bob for the time that you've dedicated to helping us understand more about the coronavirus and how we can stay safe and move forward together. I just want to end with this thought. Says, we must remember that God has not called us to live in fear, but in faith. As the Apostle Paul wrote in 2 Timothy 1:7, for the Spirit of God does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. Our prayer should be that God will fill us all with these three gifts, no matter what comes our way. Let's pray. Father, we thank you because we know you are with us. And as our friend, Pastor David, shared with us this morning, we are going to trust you as our provider. We're going to lean on you as we move forward, Father. You've given us discernment. You've given us great counsel and wisdom today. May we apply what we've learned and continue to trust you as we move forward, because we're praying in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you for coming.